Hello everyone, today I am going to be discussing what is, in my opinion, the best horror game of all time, the best hack and slash game of all time, and one of my favorite platformers, Alice Madness Returns. Now, unlike most of my normal reviews, I have no notes for this, I have no script, I'm just going purely off of my love for Alice, no notes, no script, no nothing. This game, it has 6 chapters plus a final boss chapter, and each chapter, apparently the game can be beaten in under 8 hours if you were not focusing on any of the side objectives. You were just doing the main story, but doing a very thorough playthrough of the game. You're looking to play, I don't know, maybe at least 12 hours if you're just doing a very thorough playthrough of the game. And I'm currently doing a New Game Plus playthrough on Xbox 360. That being said, the footage you're seeing is from the PC port, just because at this time, I don't have anything set up to record on Xbox 360, even though I got ripped off of 2 capture cards that didn't work. Rest in peace, my money. So this game, like I said, it's a hack and slash. It wasn't one of the first hack and slashes I played. I think it was the 4th hack and slash, maybe the 5th. The first one was The Force Unleashed. That's a pretty good game too. But Alice just has amazing combat. My only real complaint with the combat is, at least on normal difficulty, combat situations generally don't last that long. Now, that being said, on the Nightmare difficulty, which I'm currently playing through on my New Game Plus playthrough, combat situations are considerably longer because the enemies have way more health. What really makes this game stand out to me is its ability to be a horror game without being really scary. It's not until like the 6th chapter, until the game itself is actually that scary. It's more of just telling a very a very deep and dark story. Like I said, most of the game itself, most of the visuals aren't that scary. I think like towards the end of the 2nd chapter, that was pretty creepy. And in the opening cutscene where Alice was having, I'm not sure due to YouTube community guidelines if I'm allowed to describe what was happening to her. But let's just say that her face was in multiple pieces in the opening cutscene. Let's just put it that way. And the parts where where you actually see Alice in the asylum, that was pretty creepy. Speaking of that, I'm currently playing through Dementium the Ward, another asylum related game. But back to Alice. The story is, like I said, it's very deep, it's very dark. I'm not even 100% sure if I can really discuss the story very in depth with YouTube community guidelines, because it might technically be violating the community guidelines to really discuss the story. Like that's how disturbing the story is. But in a nutshell, let me try and think of a way to word it which would be community guideline friendly. Rest in peace, freedom of speech. So after the first game, American McGee's Alice, which I haven't actually beaten yet, I do need to finish it. I do need to finish that. But basically, Alice is, she makes her mental recovery from basically her trauma, coma, whatever you want to call it. During that had to be put in the asylum from the time she was 12, if I remember correctly, up until the time she was 17. You play as her when she's 17 in the first game, and you play as her when she is 19 in the second game. And the doctor, Dr. Bumby, kind of just takes Alice under his wing after she's out of the asylum, because she can't really take care of herself to a full extent. She's kind of put in kind of a halfway home, almost, you could call it. Like it's basically a kind of an orphanage, but Dr. Bumby runs it, and Alice kind of just helps out in exchange for being able to live there. But it turns out that Dr. Bumby is actually a trafficker of minors. Again, I'm having to try and word things in a way that's friendly with the community guidelines, and you realize that basically in the story he was trying to break Alice's mind to where she was kind of just a zombie, because he felt he could make quite a bit of money off of her, and I must admit that McGee did make her character very attractive. So I do understand where Bumby was coming from, but he was definitely an evil person. And in the end of the story, Alice got justice by causing him to meet his demise by throwing him in front of a train. And you learn that Dr. Bumby was responsible for the house fire that killed Alice's sister and her parents when he came during the night and forced himself upon Alice's older sister Lizzie, and Alice was the only survivor of the fire. It was speculated that her cat survived, but that was never officially confirmed. And basically, in the game, it's Alice fighting against, Dr. Bumby trying to break her mind or destroy Wonderland in the game. And the game does go in between Alice in Wonderland, where she kind of drifts out into a almost subconscious state, you could call it, back into the real world, back and forth, until she's finally able to put all the pieces together as to what Dr. Bumby's been doing to her, and that he was the one responsible for killing her family, and what he's been doing, trafficking minors. And like I said, eventually she does end up killing him at the end of the game, or more accurately, throwing him in front of the train. And I mean, that's just a brief, community guideline friendly rundown of the story. Again, the story is very dark, and yeah, very dark story. Now, this game is very impressive on the visuals. It's one of the things that really sells it. I mean, this game is just very artistically gifted, I guess you could say. It's almost like Dr. Seuss, but if it was serious, one could almost... I think one could compare American McGee's art in Alice Madness Returns to Dr. Seuss, but if Dr. Seuss was a horror author instead of a child-friendly author. And the soundtrack for this game, it was pretty good. I must say that I do think that the first game had a stronger horror element to it than the second game did. The second game had a more horror story than an actual horror element. There was only like one chapter of the game, only like part of one chapter, the chapter 6, in which the game was genuinely scary. Most of the time, there were some creepy vibes here and there, but overall, it wasn't really that scary. Like I said, Madness Returns more of just focused on telling a horror story with occasional horror elements. Meanwhile, the first game was more of just like one big horror element, just a general eeriness, a general dark vibe, kind of like World at War, in which there's just a dark feel to it. And I definitely don't think this game gets all the recognition that it deserves, and it is really sad that EA decided to cancel the third and final game in the trilogy, Alice Asylum. I can imagine it would have been a fantastic game, just based off of how amazing Madness Return is. Now, the platforming in the game, like I said, it is a platforming. The platforming takes up at least half of the gameplay, which it can be a little frustrating at times, but just the beautiful art style and the combat do kind of help make up for it. The combat's great, in my opinion. Like I said, it's one of the best hack and slash. It is the best hack and slash I've ever played. I'm not really sure if I have much else to say at this time. If I was to give this game a out of 10 rating, that's a pretty good question. I might give it a 10 out of 10. I think honestly, it would be a bit more deserving of like a 9.9 out of 10 than a straight up 10 out of 10. But as of right now, I'm going to give it a 9.9 out of 10. It's definitely within my top 10 games of all time. Maybe within the top 5, but I'd have to really sit and think about that. Well, that's my review for today. I hope you enjoyed watching. Please do feel free to like, subscribe, and comment, all that good stuff. And next week's review is probably going to be Dementium the Ward, a Nintendo DS horror game. So make sure you stick around if you want to see another horror review next week. Thank you so much for watching. Jesus loves you. Have a great day. Goodbye.